Nityanandana Shalakaya Chakshuvamilitam Shena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Namaskritya Deshatari Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Hare
Gonatai ki jai. Shri Radha Gopinath Radhana Sangha ki jai. Jai Gopinath. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Purvani Pracharane Nivasesha Sunyavadi Praskati Deshtarane. Om Ganatamilandasya Jana Jana Salakaya Chaksu Samilatan Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. Sri Caitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Sayam Rupapilamayam Dadati Sapandantikam Mansakalpatruvasya Kripasindu Bhayivasa Patitanam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Hare Krishna. Good morning. Hare Krishna. In this third chapter of Madhya Lila, the middle portion of the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we've heard up to the point that Mahaprabhu has taken sannyas and Nityananda Prabhu has brought him to the home of Sri Advaita Acharya, and he and the three lords, Nityananda Prabhu, Sri Advaita Acharya Prabhu, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu have taken prasadam, because Mahaprabhu, after taking sannyas, he had not eaten for 3 days. Why? He wasn't fasting exactly in the sense of this is a fast day and I'm not going to eat, but rather he was so internally absorbed that he didn't consider his bodily needs. They weren't a consideration. And Mahaprabhu is going to exhibit something very soon that shows not only the absence of bodily needs, but the actions of the soul. And that's what this book actually means, Caitanya Caritamrta. The Chaitanya means consciousness or the soul. So the activities of the soul, not in the realm of matter, but in the realm of the eternal realm of the spiritual world. Because now we see the activities, what we see before our eyes are the activities of the soul in the realm of matter. And what are the activities of the soul in the realm of matter? We see the soul encased in a body. We see the soul, I think it's too loud, Radharana. The soul encased in a body and involved in what generally, whether it's even a human body or an animal body, just engaged on the level of eating, sleeping, mating, defending. So Mahaprabhu, not being engaged on the physical level, on the bodily level, wasn't eating. Not because he was feeling the absence of food and nourishment for the body, but because he was living active on the level of the soul. And the limit of someone who's acting on the level of the soul is going to be hinted at. Or we're going to see the externals of that in what we read today. And we'll speak something about what goes on internally to bring these kind of external manifestations. We'll speak something about that also. So after Mahaprabhu took prasadam and rested, and he took prasadam because it was a reciprocation with Sri Advaita Acharya's affectionate desire to feed him. And Sri Advaita Acharya's wife, Sita Thakurani, had cooked an incredible amount of luxurious food, cooked with such devotion and in great quantities, just for the pleasure of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So after that, honoring that prasadam, or taking that prasadam to bring great pleasure to Advaita Acharya and Sita Thakurani, then Nitai and Gaur rested. And then what happened? When the people of Shantipur heard that Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was staying there at the home of Advaita Acharya in Shantipur, they all immediately came to see his lotus feet. They wanted to see him. They had seen him previously, before he was a sannyasi, with his long flowing hair and his height, tall. He was quite tall, and his great beauty. But now they wanted to see him as a sannyasi. And because he was such a powerful, charismatic person, they just wanted to see him and be in his presence. So, Shantipure Loka Shuni Prabodha Agamana, that when the people of Shantipur heard that the Lord had come, Dekite Oila Loka Prabodha Charan, they came to see his lotus feet. They immediately came to see his lotus feet. Hari Hari Bali Loka Anandita Hoy, Chamatkara Poila Prabodha Saundarya Dekina, and seeing him, his beauty, Saundarya, his beautiful Mahaprabhu's beauty, they were amazed. Chamatkar means this is amazing, this is wonderful. And Hari Hari Bali, all the people of the Loka, all the people were chanting Hari Hari, the names of the Lord, Anandito, with great happiness and great ecstasy. They became struck with wonder upon seeing the beauty of the Lord. Gaura Deha Kanti, to see his effulgent body. Surya Janiya Ujjala, that conquered the effulgent beauty of the sun. He was so effulgent. Have you ever seen anyone that was effulgent? Most people today lack effulgence, because of their bodily luster has been greatly diminished. We saw Prabhupada had great effulgence. I mean, it wasn't like you had to wear sunglasses to look at him. It wasn't on that level, but you could say his aura or his personal presence was not like the personal presence of an ordinary person in this world. When he would walk into an airport or a place that was of this world, then he would clearly stand out, not only because of all the devotees chanting wildly surrounding him and jumping up and down and falling down to the ground. That was before there was a lot of security. And but because he was, when you look at the videos of Prabhupada, the video recordings of Prabhupada, saying the one that it struck me the most was in San Francisco, in Golden Gate Park, when he's chanting amongst the youth. It's like he arrived. It's like he arrived from a different planet or something like that. He was just, he was there and he was participating, but at the same time he was not there, and he was just on a completely different level of consciousness and looking on a completely different level than what was going on. So Mahaprabhu, when the people saw Aruna Vastrakanti, his beautiful garments that were Aruna. What is Aruna, the color Aruna? Does anyone know? It's translated as reddish, but you know what Aruna is? Have you been to Jagannath Puri and seen the column outside that's of Aruna Dev? Aruna is the one who leads the sun. So before the sun, or just when it's just arisen, it's a reddish color, but a very, very effulgent, reddish, beautiful color. And you could look at that color. You can't look at the sun directly. It will destroy your retina. But when it's just arisen, you can look at it, and it's actually the rays aren't harmful, and it's actually very healthy for the eyes. So, but that reddish color of the sun just after it's arisen was the color of his vastra kanti, effulgent garments. And they were takari jalamala, they were glittering. And all the people just saw him, and they were awestruck. It was amazing. The bright luster, his fair complexion, body, and its bright luster was conquered the brilliance of the sun. And above this, over and above this, was the beauty of the saffron garments that glittered upon his body. So people came and went with great pleasure. There was no calculating how many people assembled there before the day was over. And as soon as it was evening, when the sun was setting, then the mood shifted. Then Advaita Acharya started the kirtan. Because this is what the devotees used to do with Caitanya Mahaprabhu before he took sannyas. For several years, every evening they would gather together and chant Krishna's names. And in that chanting, Mahaprabhu being the leader of that chanting, his influence, the influence of his ecstasies, and the influence of his heart that was completely melted in love for Krishna, and the ecstasies that were produced from his internal absorption. There's external manifestations, and one can imitate those. We used to say, I think it came from Prabhupada, that sometimes when people wanted to imitate an ecstatic devotee chanting in Bengal, they would take some garlic and put it under their armpit, and that would cause tears to come from their eyes. That example came from Prabhupada. And then ordinary village people would say, "Oh, very advanced devotee. But what's that funny smell?" So it's easy to, not easy, but one can manifest the externals without having the internal, and that's unnatural, and that's called sahajya. But when the external manifestations of ecstasy are manifested from one's internal absorption, like Mahaprabhu was doing, then the ecstasy is real and the symptoms are real. So Advaita Acharya, as soon as it was evening, Sandhya, when the Sandhya, how many Sandhyas are there in a day?
One.
Huh? 1, 2, 3, 4, how many? 3. There's midday, and then when the Sandhya means a conjunction point, meeting point. So when the sun is just arising, that period of the day is called Sandhya, and when the sun is setting, and then the Abhijit time, whereas in between the sunrise and the sunset, you calculate when the sun rises and the sun sets, and then you divide it in two, and you get the Abhijit time, or the noon time, or the third Sandhya, where it goes with the transition between morning and afternoon. So when it was evening, the Sandite Acharya Arambila Sankirtan, he began the congregational chanting, the Sankirtan. Acharya Natsen, he began to dance, and Prabhu Karena Darshana. And the Lord watched the performance of Advaita Acharya's kirtan and his dancing. So, the English word performance, what does it mean? When you think of the word performance, what do you think of immediately? Acting, yes. So the word performance in the sense of acting doesn't fit here. But what is the connotation of the word performance?
Something that's not real?
Yeah, but not real because why?
Something external.
External, but that's not how Prabhupada means it here.
Ordinary.
Not ordinary, no. But it's like, say, if we're going to perform a puppet show right now. So it's a performance, but the purpose of the performance is for the pleasure of another. So in that sense, most dramas or different things or performances, they're done for the pleasure of another. So this Sankirtan is actually a performance. It's done for the pleasure of another, but it's not done for the pleasure of the audience. The kirtan is performed for the pleasure of, excuse me? Yeah. So that's a completely different mood, because if you're doing it for the audience, the participants, or the participants are doing it for, what's going to be the mood? That if you're leading a kirtan or giving a class or something, and the mood is as a performance to please the audience, those who are listening or participating, or a drama, then you're going to perform in such a way that you want them to like it and like you and say, oh, what a great performance you put on. But that may not be at all pleasing to Krishna, which is the central point of the kirtan. And yes, it is a performance, but it's a performance, an activity for the pleasure of Krishna. So how to chant, for example, how to chant in such a way that Krishna is pleased. Then to be able to do that, you have to know what is pleasing to Krishna. If you just have a wonderful warbling voice, and you're just singing so that the people in the audience will think, what a wonderful voice he has, even though you have a wonderful voice, that's not pleasing to Krishna. But if you're singing for Krishna's pleasure, and music is one of the best offerings to Krishna, but the point is that it has to be an offering for Krishna's pleasure. So how to chant or listen to a class even in such a way that Krishna is pleased. So this is something that we should think about, or give a class in such a way that Krishna is pleased. It's something to meditate upon. When Advaita Acharya began to dance, Nityananda Prabhu began dancing behind him. So Advaita Acharya was in front, Nityananda Prabhu was right behind him, and he began to dance too. And who was behind Nityananda Prabhu? Haridas Thakur, being very pleased to hear the kirtan. After Mahaprabhu had left, everyone was devastated, because everyone was thinking, because a sannyasi is not allowed to return to his hometown again. Part of the regulations, because there everyone knows him. Oh, we remember when you were this big, and you remember when this, and and all your different relatives are there, and etc., etc. And his mission is to be above those considerations. So now Mahaprabhu was again in their presence of Thakur Haridas, Advaita Acharya, Nityananda, and the kirtan was going on, which was exactly what their greatest inspiration was, to chant in the presence of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because his ecstasies, his melted heart, his ecstasies caused their hearts to melt and be ecstatic in love for Krishna. The taste was coming through. So Haridas Thakur, being very pleased, also began dancing behind him. So how many people dancing so far have been mentioned? Three. Yeah. Advaita Acharya said, and he's going to recite a verse from that of Vidyapati, a great Vaishnava poet. My dear friends, he said, what shall I say? Today I have received the highest transcendental pleasure. After many, many days, Lord Krishna is in my house. Ki kohiba re sakir jukanandora. Chire dine, after a long time, Madhava Mandire Mora. It's a very beautiful run. So he's again in my house. So what does this mean? Why is Advaita Acharya mentioning this? Of course, it's reflecting directly his sentiments. After many days, Mahaprabhu was again in his home in Shantipur. But there's another meaning too, because Vidyapati, who was the great Vaishnava composer of this verse, he wasn't thinking ahead to when Mahaprabhu would be in the house of Advaita Acharya, but it's a song of separation. So it has two meanings. One is why Advaita Acharya is saying it, because he's feeling the ecstasy of Mahaprabhu being in his home again, and of course we can't quite understand what it was like for him, but they were completely like-minded in spirit, in love for Krishna. But Mahaprabhu was in a mood that had so much sweetness to it. The ecstasies, the internal ecstasies that he was experiencing, and this is the meaning of this verse, as Prabhupada will explain in his purport, gives a hint as to what his internal experiences were, as his external, the result of that internal experience is going to be described. For example, because the time is 9:40 now, and maybe we've eaten our breakfast, or maybe we haven't, or maybe we got up very early in the morning, and maybe we're tired. And if we're tired and the class is going on, then we just want to become a little more comfortable. And then, not that I'm going to fall asleep, but I'm just going to close my eyes so I can meditate a bit more deeply. And so, if you see me going like this, and so many times this happens, when that someone is listening to a class and they're like this, and then the person behind them goes, I wasn't sleeping, he'll say. Did that ever happen to you? Did you ever say that? No. Did that ever happen to you? Did that happen to you? Yeah, it happened to me too. I wasn't sleeping. How dare you accuse me of sleeping? I wouldn't. If I keep yawning, everyone's going to fall asleep. But the external is going to indicate what's going on internally. And when here in this verse, the description of the internal is given by Advaita Acharya, And he's complementing the internal mood of Caitanya Mahaprabhu. And his internal mood is what? Virahavav, which means separation, feeling separation from Krishna. Feeling separation from Krishna so intensely that nothing is important for him. His whole world feels empty without the presence of Krishna. So we can't imagine this with our fertile brains, but sometimes we can take an experience that we've had in this world when we're missing someone that we have affection for, and we can multiply that by 10 or 20 or 1,000 or 100,000 or 100 million, and we get a vague idea of what Mahaprabhu was experiencing. And the problem nowadays, and once in Vrindavan had some service to perform for one Vrindavan sadhu, and he said, he started talking about one sannyasi, and he said, I've seen this 50-year-old man sitting with his mother at the breakfast table, and she's taking a spoon and putting food on the spoon and feeding him, and he's 50 years old. And then he explained the point. He said, I've actually seen this. Now, if someone is doing that, I don't recommend any of you 50-year-olds and above to have that kind of a relationship with your mother specifically. But he was making the point that the motherly love for her son was so great, it was placing him in the mood of being just a little boy again. And he was relishing her motherly love, and she was relishing treating him like her little boy. And he was saying that nowadays, I've seen this, but nowadays no one really even knows what love is because of difficulties in the family being brought up and things like that. People don't know what love is, and yet they want to try to understand what the love of Radha and Krishna is in the spiritual world. And you can't. They don't have the experience that you can multiply by 10 or 50 or 1,000 or 100,000 or 1,000,000. So how do you find out what that is? So one has, because in Kali Yuga, more and more, I mean, now, I don't know what the statistics are right now, but, at least in the West, it's like at least 50% is divorce rate. 50% at least. So that's shattered, the experience. Especially when it happens when one's young. It shatters the experience of what a family is. So what are you going to do? What are you going to multiply to a 1,000,000 to get even a hint of what spiritual love is, or to understand what Mahaprabhu was going through when we don't have an experience of love or being loved? And because we don't have the experience of love, I'm just speaking in a general way, not for everyone, obviously, but because we don't have the experience of being loved, we don't have the experience of missing that love, and then we tend to become hard-hearted and selfish and self-absorbed, trying to fill in the nourishment of affection that we've lacked. So Mahaprabhu has given a gift to the people of Kali Yuga, where one can experience a taste of what the spiritual world is like, despite the fact that one may have not had a perfect upbringing, despite the fact that Kali Yuga causes so many wounds in the heart. But if one is present in a kirtan performance where the Lord is being glorified, and especially if there are many devotees all in a similar mood, and the meditation is on Krishna and pleasing Krishna, then the bliss, as it is said in Caitanya Bhagavat, the bliss, Mahaprabhu caused the bliss of Vaikuntha to descend. And that means that we can taste something from that realm. Golokeda Premadana Hari Nama Sankirtana. We can get a taste of that realm that is different. It's a sweetness, it's a nourishment, it's a flavor, it's a fragrance from that realm, which is alokika. It is beyond this mundane realm, and it gives us a taste, an andambudi, but that's always, it can give us a taste that's always expanding, depending upon how deeply we become absorbed in it, and how deeply we allow the Sankirtan to penetrate into our consciousness in a continuous way. And that taste is different from the tastes of this world, even if one multiplies the pleasurable tastes of this world by 10 or 50 or 100 or 1,000 or a million. It's the you could say the shortcut method to get there, and that's one of Mahaprabhu's great gifts. Now, this mood that he's describing, I'll read Prabhupada's purport. This is a song composed by Vidyapati. Sometimes the word Madhava in the verse, Chiradine Madhava Mandire Mora. Sometimes the word Madhava is misunderstood to refer to Madhavendra Puri. Advaita Acharya was a disciple of Madhavendra Puri, and consequently some people think that he was referring to Madhavendra Puri by using the word Madhava. But actually, this is not a fact. This song was composed to commemorate the separation of Krishna the separation of Krishna from Radharani during Krishna's absence in Mathura. It is thought that this song was sung by Srimati Radharani when Krishna returned. It is technically called Mathura Varaha. So the internal mood that Advaita Acharya was expressing here was the internal mood that Mahaprabhu was relishing. And that was in the mood of Srimati Radharani, missing Krishna when Krishna was far away from Braj, far away from Vrindavan and Mathura, and then finally Dwarka. So what was that like? We can't understand exactly what it was like because we don't have hearts that are completely compatible with Mahaprabhu, but that's our goal. To have a heart that's in concordance. There is a musical term called a sympathetic note. Does anyone know what that means? What does the word sympathy mean?
Empathy and capacity to feel.
To feel what?
The same emotions.
Excuse me?
The same way.
The same way. Yes. When someone is feeling one way, to be able to experience the same feeling is called empathy often, or sympathy. Or if you take, in a musical terms, if you take one note, a stringed instrument, and you vibrate that stringed instrument, and you have another string instrument with that same note there, the vibration with the same note, another stringed instrument, the vibration will, from that one string, will cause that second string to resonate and vibrate, and it's called a sympathetic vibration. Now you know what a sympathetic vibration is? Yeah. So, Mahaprabhu's mood was completely in harmony with the mood of Srimati Radharani, and Krishna himself was so attracted by that mood of Radharani's love for him that he himself wanted to experience that I had Krishna, and now being away from Krishna, there's no meaning in my life. My life is empty. There's no meaning to my existence without Krishna, but missing him and crying and crying and crying. And so there's an internal mood, and then there's the external manifestation of the internal mood. So we're getting here a hint here by Kaviraj Goswami, or by Advaita Acharya, and Kaviraj Goswami is expressing it of what the internal mood, but we're only going to get a hint. But we're going to see the external manifestation of it, and that external manifestation is so intense. It is so intense. So from seeing the external manifestation, that's so intense, we can get some idea of what the internal mood of separation of Caitanya Mahaprabhu is. Advaita Acharya led the Sankirtan party, and with great pleasure he sang this verse. There was a manifestation of ecstatic perspiration. Now, we hear these words, Sveda Kampa Pulaka Suru Hankara Garjana. We hear the words, and if we're a little familiar with the Krishna consciousness movement or have read Caitanya Caritamrta, we know what they mean. But please consider that these are the external manifestations of something going on internally, and try to get a glimpse of what the intensity of that internal mood of missing Krishna was, that Srimati Radharani was experiencing, that Mahaprabhu Krishna himself was so attracted to, that he wanted to taste that, the bliss coming from this. Advaita Acharya led the Sankirtan party. With great pleasure he sang this verse. There was a manifestation of ecstatic perspiration, shivering, raised hairs, tears in the eyes, and sometimes thundering, hankara, and bellowing. While dancing, Advaita Acharya would sometimes turn around and around and around and catch the lotus feet of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Advaita Acharya would then speak to him as follows. He would say, Aneka Dina. What does Anek Din mean?
Many days.
Many days. Tumi Mora. I'm not going to be able to pronounce properly enough for you to understand my Bengali. but there's a reason why I want to read the Bengali despite my pronunciation. Bedaila Bhandia. Do you understand what that means?
That means like departure.
Yeah, so for many days you have departed, escaped, Prabhupada. And Bandiya means Bandiya. Bandiya. Anyway, Prabhupada translates it as cheating or bluffing. Bandiya. And then Garite Panache, that I have gotten you back in my house. So this is the mood of someone who loves someone, they missed them so much while they're away, and now they're back, and the last thing you want is for them to leave again. So Advaita Acharya would grab the lotus feet of Caitanya Mahaprabhu holding them tightly, and said, "For so many days you've been absent from my heart. You've cheated me by leaving." But Garete Pranat saying, now that you're here, Ebe Rakiba Bandia. So Bandia and Bandia. Those are the two words at the end. And unfortunately, I can't do the proper poetry due to being Brooklynese is my native mother tongue. Rakibo Bandia. And Bandia, so one Bandia means, Bandia means you've cheated me and bluffed me. And then at the other part, Bandia means now I will bind you up. So I'm not going to let you go. I mean, he's holding Mahaprabhu's feet, so he's experiencing the separation from Mahaprabhu. And when Mahaprabhu took sannyas, the devotees in Mayapur and Navadvip, they fainted to the ground. The life left their bodies, and now we have nothing. And then Nityananda Prabhu, being very kind-hearted, brought Mahaprabhu to the house of Advaita Acharya, and all the devotees came to see him, and that we'll hear about a little bit later. From being completely broken and empty and experiencing the world as sanyayate jagat savam, the whole universe, the world is having no meaning, no purpose. And then suddenly your beloved is there with you, and Advaita Acharya grabs his feet and says, I'm not going to let you escape this time. Many days you escaped me by bluffing, by cheating me. But now I have you in my home, and I will keep you bound up. So what is the way to keep Krishna bound up?
Effort and mercy.
Huh?
Effort and mercy.
Very good answer, but not quite. How to keep Krishna bound up?
With love.
With love is the only way. So Vrindavana pratyajan padam ekam nagachati. He doesn't go one step out of Vrindavan because of the love of the residents of Vrindavan. So speaking in this way, Advaita Acharya performed congregational chanting with great pleasure for 3 hours that night. He was again with Mahaprabhu and danced all the time, chanting and dancing for 3 hours in ecstasy that Mahaprabhu was there. When Advaita Acharya danced in that way, Lord Chaitanya, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, Prabhu Nahi Krishna Sangha, he felt ecstatic love for Krishna. So Advaita Acharya was feeling, now I have you, my Lord. And due to the kirtan, Mahaprabhu was feeling, oh, where is Krishna? I don't have Krishna. So you have these, it's like a symphony, musical symphony with different melodies mixing in it. And it's all causing the greatest ecstasy. So Prabhu Nahi Krishna Sangha. What does that mean? What was he experiencing?
Not Krishna's accompany.
He was he was experiencing in the kirtan, he was experiencing that, oh, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? He was in the mood of Srimati Radharani, feeling Varabhav. Varahe Badila Prema Jala Taranga. And Taranga means the waves. Prema, it's interesting because Prema Jalara, Prabhupada translates it, means the flames of love, and Taranga means waves, so waves mean water. So when the flames of love are high, even the waves, they don't put out those kind of flames, but rather they just cause different movements on the ocean of ecstasy and separation from Krishna. So when Advaita Acharya danced in that way, Lord Chaitanya felt ecstatic love for Krishna. And because of his separation, the waves and flames of love increased. So everyone present began experiencing Mahaprabhu's experience. This is called association. Being agitated by the ecstasy, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu suddenly fell to the ground. Seeing this, Advaita Acharya stopped dancing. And when Mukunda saw the ecstasy of separation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he understood the feelings of the Lord. And Mukunda had a beautiful voice, and he began to sing many songs, augmenting or complementing the force of the Lord's ecstasy. Advaita Acharya raised the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to help him dance. But the Lord, after hearing the stanzas, the verses sung by Mukunda, could not be held due to his bodily symptoms. Tears fell from his eyes. His whole body trembled. His bodily hairs stood on end. He perspired heavily, and his words faltered. He could not speak. Sometimes he stood, sometimes he fell, and sometimes he cried. Now, this is the perfection of the Hare Krishna movement. Looking at it from the material point of view, it sounds like suffering. But the soul, of course, Mahaprabhu having a spiritual body, but he was alive in separation from Krishna, in the ecstasy of the soul, because in the separation Krishna is present and the soul is with Krishna in the greatest love. And the ecstasy produced from that love is causing these external manifestations. So who can understand this? With material consciousness, with a material mind and material consciousness means that all our experiences and our concepts are of the material world. Who can understand this? No one. So therefore, Caitanya Caritamrta is not the first book that people read. Bhagavad Gita, Dehenosmin yata dehe komanam, you're not your body, and then there's a supreme Lord, and you're supposed to have a relationship with him. Sarvadhamam prityaja, you give up your material conceived things which are based on the body, and you develop your relationship with Krishna, and you give yourself to him. And then in Srimad Bhagavatam we learn more, and then finally going through all the different cantos till the 10th canto, and then we hear about the residents of Vrindavan and their ecstatic relationship with Krishna, which is based on their particular type of love for Krishna, where they're so intimate with the Lord, where they feel he's mine, mamata. They feel he is mine. Whenever these type of points come up, I remember, especially when thinking about how can anyone understand this, even religious people. I remember going to the Vatican in Rome after some teachers' meeting, and it's this incredible museum, the Sistine Chapel Museum, and I remember, and there's such a feeling of awe and reverence there, and they have these tapestries and paintings and sculptures that are priceless. You can't buy them for millions and millions and millions of dollars. And I remember specifically one tapestry, like a carpet, was on the wall. It was huge. It was big. It was, I can't remember it accurately, but it was almost as big as both the curtains, not maybe 1.5 of the curtains over there. It was quite big, and that wide, and in it there was some sadhu, saintly-looking person, a Christian saint, and he was like this, and in looking up at the corner of the tapestry, and there was a great effulgence that was God. He was in the presence of the divine, and he was like this. And then, because when one is in the presence of the divine, one feels himself very insignificant and filled with fear. Because why? Because we're powerless. We imagine ourselves powerful and that have some control in my life, but ultimately we're powerless when confronted with divine power. So when I thought of that, and I thought, this is so different from Krishna consciousness, because in Krishna consciousness, this Mother Yasoda is on the top, where the effulgence is, and Krishna is going like this, and she's and if you steal butter again, you're going to not only get tied up, but so how is it? It's somewhat of a different concept of what it means to have a relationship with the Supreme Lord, with God, with Parameshwara, with Krishna. So what Caitanya Mahaprabhu is teaching, by his example, by his relishing, but he's teaching it also by his own relishing, the degree of intimacy that one can have in relationship with God, with the Supreme Lord. How intimate can one have a relationship? This is certainly a relationship, but it's very distant because of the awe and reverence. Very distant. You can't come close. But Mahaprabhu giving this most cherished and deepest relationship with Krishna, Achiram Charat, he's giving this through the chanting of the holy names and showing by example that this is what we are meant for. We're not meant to try to get pleasures in the material world, but we're meant to experience the deepest internal ecstasy in an intimate relationship with Krishna. Okay, we'll stop here. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Is separation from the devotees, can that also be seen as the same as separation from the Lord, as seen in the verses that we read? Like there's the example of separation in the CC, of the person being in a cage with a tiger and flames all around.
You mean?
How does this analogy relate to the above flames of love?
Yeah, completely different. So what are the example of being in a cage with a tiger or flames? What is that referring to? That's not referring to, that means to being in deepest association with non-devotees. That's what it refers to there, because that's very painful for a devotee, one who's completely a devotee. Why is that painful? Because there's an incompatibility of consciousness, because he wants to serve Krishna, he's in love with Krishna, and they want to enjoy life. So can one experience separation from devotees? I thought that was your question. Yes, certainly, because devotees are carrying Krishna in their hearts. You can, one certainly can experience separation from devotees, but one could also experience separation from God in the sense of if He doesn't supply me my daily bread, I'm not going to have anything to eat. So that's one mood that would be of separation. That's wouldn't be as high as what can I give to, how can I serve him, as opposed to what can I get from him. But still, it's certainly a great step on the path, down the path. Did that answer your question?
Not entirely, because isn't the separation from devotees is included in the separation from Krishna?
Oh, that's what I say.
Krishna, so
Yeah.
it's parallel, isn't it?
Yes, I tried to say that. Maybe I didn't make that clear, but yes. But just as one can have not a full, like when one is missing the devotees because the sweetness that comes from their association is the sweetness of relationship with Krishna. Yes. But what I was trying to say is that one could also miss Krishna in, like, where am I going to eat unless he provides me my food? So we could also have a material relationship with the devotees too, which is not on the same level, but still it's wonderful. Do you follow what I mean? Does anyone understand what I'm saying? There's different levels that one can have separation from, or missing Krishna, or so what Mahaprabhu is showing is what the highest level of, which is the highest level of, based on the greatest internal intimacy. And in fact, just as you said, when in the conversation with Ramananda Roy and Mahaprabhu asked Ramananda Roy, what is painful in this world? And he said, there's no other pain other than the separation from devotees. And so, very much so. Yes.
So in Bangladesh, I saw many Padavali Kirtan. People come together and they're like kind of acting there.
Nam Jagya.
Nam Jagya. So the presenter, the audience all cry actually.
Yeah.
So the presenter actually basically they caught up with the role and they're crying naturally actually.
Yes.
Emotionally with that thing.
Yeah.
And the audience also cry, was not related to exactly to the kirtan, but there may be some other issues in the family or the things. They actually take it out with these things. So what do you think this can be also benefit, because they're actually listening kirtans and crying same time, but even not exactly with for Krishna or anything like that, for their personal things.
Well, it can be because they're chanting.
Yeah.
But because they're not chanting in ecstasy, especially we shouldn't think that it's the same as true, deep Krishna consciousness. So usually, when Srila Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would speak of these things, this type of sahajya crying, he would speak of it in the negative. And even in Vrindavan, we don't see it so much nowadays, but previously we'd see people rolling on the ground. When they see the devotees, they start rolling on the ground as if in ecstasy. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his mood was, you kick them like that, because they're bluffing. They want to show I'm such a great devotee that I'm. So, and when you ignore them, they'll just stop immediately and go on with their regular mundane life. So it gives a hope. They're saying the name of Gaur and Nitai and Hare Krishna, and so there's certainly hope in there at some time in the future. And but they have to follow a proper path. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Yes. So,
Thank you for the wonderful class. Was there any reference about what the devotees would chant during these nocturnal kirtans? Was it mainly the Mahamantra, or was it poetry like that as well?
There are some references. It wasn't only the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. In Caitanya Caritamrta, in the verses, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra isn't mentioned even once, but it is mentioned in Chaitanya Bhagavat, where Mahaprabhu told all the devotees to go to their homes and chant, not just anyone he would meet. He would tell them to chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, but they would, and Mahaprabhu also would chant Hari Haraya Namah, Gopal Govindaram, Sri Madhusudan, and but they would. I think the kirtans were very wild. They would scream and laugh, and there was nothing that we should imitate. So we follow the I would say the more subdued, but equally ecstatic path given to us by our acharyas, which is the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and chanting Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Yeah, they would chant different names. That's my understanding. Any other? But this is the Maha Mantra, the great chanting for deliverance, Prabhupada called it. Yes.
In relation to performing for Krishna,
yes.
If someone pretends to be a particular way, they might find that they're actually becoming what they're pretending. Like, for example, if someone pretends to laugh, they might find that they're actually laughing. So if someone pretends to be
a gopi and starts dressing in a sari, and he's a guy. We used to also see that in Vrindavan in the early days. When we were first there, we'd see gentlemen in saris, and that's called a particular kind of Sahajiya group called Sakyaveki. And the idea was that, that if I pretend, then gradually I'll figure out how to do it. But it's not very appealing to Krishna. But it never used, it disturbed a lot of devotees, but it never disturbed me because I'm from New York and you see all kinds of far out things in New York. There's nothing. So that's not the path that we've been taught. That's the path of imitation isn't the path that we've been taught. The path, there's two words, anukshana and anusara. One is following in the footsteps and the other is imitation. So we're taught to follow in the footsteps, meaning the instructions, not to imitate what they do. What do you think?
I was thinking more of in terms of prem for Krishna. Like, for example, if someone's a big prem, can they try and then through that get? That's
the way to get yourself in trouble. That's imitating. Rather, you should try to follow the instructions and the path given to us by the acharyas, the great teachers, and their example. And then let the Maha Mantra, for example, bring prem to you, because there's nothing because this is of the spiritual world. And there's nothing that anyone in the material world can do through any material activity that can cause the spiritual realm to descend in his heart and prem to descend in his heart. But the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is not of the material world. The deity is not of the material world. So we take shelter of the Dham, the devotees, the Bhagavatam. We take shelter of those instructions and those activities and let the spiritual world, by their influence, exert their influence in our hearts, in our consciousness. And let it grow naturally from that, because one can get oneself in unlimited trouble by imitation. And if you want to take the path of imitation, you should start by being a devotee of Lord Shiva. And you can imitate him drinking the ocean of poison. And then if you survive that one, you can you can move onward. What do you think?
I think it's interesting because whenever I get in Vrindavan, there's lots of imitators, it seems.
So don't imitate the imitators.
Yeah.
The real thing is more rare. Like Prabhupada told us about they would call a scam or a ruse or a cheating method, where some people would, some person would have an imitation gold ring, gold and diamond ring, but it's all imitation. And he'd be in a crowded street, and he'd say, have you seen my gold ring? I lost it. Have you seen my gold and diamond ring? I've lost it. I can't find it. It was worth so much money, and I can't find it. I'm in so much anxiety. And his friend would be in the edge of the crowd, say, if you want to buy a gold ring, we'll give you a good price for it. It's real, gold and diamonds. So they'd be working together. And he'd be cheating, lying, and he'd be making believe it was real. And then Sonny from the village comes. Sonny from the village comes and says, wow, you're selling a real golden diamond ring for only 100 rupees. Wow, it's a really good deal. Yeah.
What Son is saying, is there something like, instead of imitation, because imitation means that you're not exactly faking it, but you're taking something from one level and trying to move it to the other. Is there something like indication? Because in Bhagavad Gita we hear about, there's a tree and there's a reflection of the tree.
Yes.
And so is there sort of a level where by looking at this world we can see it a little differently, that this is a shadowy reflection of the spiritual world, and people who are laughing here, they laugh there, but it's different?
Is that what you meant?
It's more like when I approach Krishna, I want to feel prem, but to bring out that prem, I have to kind of try to feel something that isn't really there.
Yeah, okay, but there's the way to do that. I think that's different from what you were saying. Yes. So when you want to, you can't experience your prem, love, when you have none. But what you can do when you read the prayers of the acharyas, if you want to pray, and I've heard Prabhupada speak on this point even recently, you pray their prayers and try to enter into their mood. And the essence of the mood, the foundation of their mood, is always humility. That I don't have prema. Not only don't I have love, I'm not qualified, because, and if anyone knows why I'm not qualified, I know better than anyone else why I'm not qualified. And the example that's given is like, say if you don't see this in Perth, it's quite illegal, but in India it may be illegal too, but in Vrindavan you see it all the time. You see a gentleman on a bicycle, and he's riding his bicycle. And how fast can you ride on a bicycle?
There's lots of speed bumps and
traffic and buffaloes and so many different things on the road. But then what they do, being very clever, they see a bus coming by, and they hold on to the bus. You ever seen that?
Yeah.
Have you seen it? Have you seen it? You grew up here, basically. No wonder you haven't seen it. You've only seen people in the kirtans crying in Bangladesh, but you haven't seen people holding on to the buses with their bicycles. So anyway, say if you're going along your bicycle, then you can go for, say, 20, at most 15, 20 kilometers an hour, over a long period. But when you're holding on to the bus, then you can go at 50 kilometers an hour, which is maybe a little bit speedy when you're holding on to a bus. But you can increase your speed so much. So this is like holding on to the prayers of the acharyas. And they're very open-hearted prayers, the prayers of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the songs of Srila Narottama Das Thakur. So if you want to, that's a very good way. Or the prayers that are in the Bhagavatam. But we should stop now because we're already a few minutes late. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Caitanya Caritamrta ki jai, Nittai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol, Sri Advaita Charja ki jai.